This will break down emotional manipulation. How many people agree or disagree? Let's see.
I felt like Neo from the Matrix, just dodging emotional manipulation left and right.
Guilt trip.
And to be clear, like
Gaslighting.
barring abusers, most people who do this operate unconsciously. They're not even aware of what they're doing, because manipulation is ultimately an unhealthy coping mechanism.
Now, this is going to be the challenge today, this comment.
Because manipulation is ultimately an unhealthy coping mechanism.
Who says? In calling it unhealthy, what does that do? Does it change its power? It's sort of it's psychology saying this is bad because I'm scared of it, but it doesn't really change the danger. It doesn't disarm the manipulator by saying it's unhealthy.
I think she's very good at it.
Oh, that's at the end. You're not supposed. You're reading into it. Yeah.
You know, it's a learned survival strategy that gets people what they want. In the same way that...
That's why people do it, because it gets people what they want. Telling people it's unhealthy is not going to change that behavior because it gets what they want. It works.
That gets people what they want. In the same way that perfectionism can be a coping mechanism learned in childhood,
yes,
so is manipulation. Emotional manipulation occurs when a person seeks power over someone else and employs dishonest or exploitative strategies to gain it.
That's a good thing. Why is it a bad thing to impose your will on someone and get what you want through dishonesty or whatever? Who's enforcing honesty rules in relationships? There are no relationship police out there.
Manipulative people attack your mental and emotional sides to get what they want, and they will take advantage of you to get power, control, benefits, or privileges. They lie, misrepresent, fib, or make misstatements in order to confuse you. They may exaggerate events to make themselves seem more vulnerable, or understate their own role in a conflict in order to gain your sympathy. Whatever the case, almost all emotional manipulators twist reality in order to benefit them. The best way to deal with this kind of manipulative behavior is to hold your boundary and stand in your truth. Now that you know the signs of an emotional manipulator and how to deal with this behavior, I have to ask, is this you? Have you employed this behavior before to get what you want? Do you embellish a situation to a friend to control a narrative? Have you left every conflict without ever saying the words, "I'm sorry"? Think about it, because I made this video specifically for two people. Specifically for two people. Specifically for two people. Think about it.
Does anyone spot the cognitive dissonance? Or you thought...
She's making this video for two people?
Yes, because she is the victim
manipulating them.
of being manipulated by two people. That was this first scene. Gaslighting, guilt trip, tactic, bullying by two people. And then at the end of the video, after describing how bad it is to be a manipulator, she says,
because I made this video specifically for two people. Specifically for two people.
So what is the purpose of that last message then? Holly, you were close.
Yeah, I mean, she's trying to get a message across to these people.
Which is?
Stop
Manipulative?
manipulating me? Stop manipulating me?
She's calling out these people indirectly.
Is it the narcissist and the codependent?
Is it the narcissist and codependent? The two people? What do you mean?
Yeah, because I think they both use manipulation.
Yes.
It's one of their tools to get what they want.
See, the codependent will use manipulation out of resentment. And she's playing the higher moral ground, saying that I'm not the one who's manipulating like all these tactics, as I described, these people did. Or as I showed this person did to me. I'm not doing that. But I'm gonna use my public presence to call out your behavior indirectly and not call that manipulation. You see? You get it? This is sort of a continuation of resentment. So this was Richard Grannon's reaction to only watching the title of my resentment videos.
Visceral Gravitas says, resentment is a codependent's power. I saw the title of one of your videos the other day, sir, that was suggesting that. I didn't fully understand, but I'm open to the idea. Maybe you're using the word.
He is not open to the idea. Right there, he's spinning. He can't even consider the idea.
I'm open to the idea. Maybe you're using the word power like power. Because it's got to be one of the worst emotions you can feel. Got to be one of the worst emotions you can feel. Worst emotions you can feel.
If codependents tamp down your resentment and you don't own how you're using manipulation to try to coax situations out of moral high ground. Oh, I'm more virtuous. I'm going to tell on this person. That's your resentment. If you don't own that resentment, you don't integrate it. You're always going to be behind the curve. This is sort of a clue.
And so these thoughts are always coming back about how you were bullied in high school and how terrible that was. And it's like, why are the thoughts coming back? And the reason is that the systems that produce anxiety are regarding your inability as a threat. They're saying,
right there, the systems that evaluate your social status and your relational interactions, they're telling this message.
Are regarding your inability as a threat.
They're evaluating your self-esteem system is evaluating you as unable to be threatening, unable to give consequences, unable to get even. You're evaluating yourself as insignificant, as useless. So that fuels your inner critic. That also fuels your anxiety because now you're wondering, how do I protect myself next time that person uses the same tactic?
Yeah,
how do I get what I want? How do I protect my needs next time? That's why there's a lot of anxiety. DJ, comment?
Yeah, I think because you think you're ineffective, right? Everything that you can't see it coming, right? And then afterwards, you try to think of what could I do to stop this from happening again, and it's sort of nerve-wracking because you can't think, well, what could I have done differently? You just really can't get it together. So I can definitely see his point. It's like you feel powerless and.
You're powerless and you don't know what to do because you're stuck by your own rules. That's where Anna's Matrix video is describing that.
I felt like
right
Neo
here.
from the Matrix. Just
So the supposed abusers are allowed to use their aggression. They're allowed to cause consequences. They're allowed to knock Anna Kana off balance. But she's not allowed to shoot back? Who says?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because I think a lot of times when you try to shoot back, it's the criticism from other people that now you have the hurt that you experienced from that individual that hurt you. And now you have the criticism for your overly harsh retaliation for your inability, so you just feel like I can't win. I mean, I think because you're always looking for validation instead of just, hey,
well, you can't win because your guns or your fighting back is an overreaction, which causes you public shame or ridicule because you're overreacting in other people's eyes.
Right. I think almost you have to have this attitude, almost like, well, that's what you get. Who cares? Fuck it. And you have to kind of get hard. It's hurtful, but you kind of have. At least that's where I found myself kind of being like, well, I don't, that's what you get. Next time you know better. But you don't want to necessarily be that person because it's kind of hard to turn yourself into that person. But no matter what you do, you can't win. You stay there and let them continue.
Today's argument. Maybe there is a way to win. But if you're using Anna Kana's answer of saying manipulation is unhealthy, then you can't win. And if you're using her argument, which is therapy, of saying moral high ground and backbiting and whining, that's not manipulation, you also can't win. Because everyone manipulates.
Yeah.
That's sort of today's argument. So let's try to explain the landscape today. And we might need a few more meetings to break down how to more effectively and own the manipulation. But since DJ mentioned can't winning, here's an example I think that describes some of that and also some of the pre-meeting conversation, I think.
Little subtle statements or subtle actions that only you and the narcissist know. And a narcissist will use those dog whistles, those inside triggers, to trigger you in front of people a lot of times. Because let's just say the word dogs can be used to trigger you. So we be in a big crowd of people are just like, yeah, I wish we could have a dog at the house. I love dogs, but and look at you like, and you like, I don't like dogs. You flame on, you know what I mean? Dog whistling. So I blow this whistle, I blow this trigger, only you know. It's like an inside joke between us, but it's used to hurt you. It's used to get you to react out of character. Hey guys, look. You see what I deal with? You see why I treat her the way I treat her? Because you see how she acts in public? I can't take her anywhere. Look at how she acts. Dog whistle. Reactive abuse. Smear campaign all in one. Boom. And I get to play the victim. Whoa. Boom. And I get to play the victim.
See his celebration?
Whoa.
See the high?
Yeah.
Because he sees it as a game. It's part of the game. Those rules are fair game. Codependents play this moral high ground game. You're still playing a game. If you're not going to exploit their weaknesses or try to find a way to have threats that they care about, then you're intentionally disarming yourself and you're having to play Neo in the Matrix, avoiding all the different attacks. And you'll be frustrated and your anxiety will be up, like Peterson was saying here.
And so these thoughts are always coming back about how you were bullied in high school and how terrible that was. And it's like, why are the thoughts coming back? And the reason is that the systems that produce anxiety are regarding your inability as a threat. They're saying, there's a threat. You don't know how to deal with people. There's a threat. And it's never going to go away because it's an alarm system. It's trying to tell you about threats.
So that's never going away. You go to a therapist to lie to you and say, you're doing the right thing. You're still going to have a part of your brain that says, danger, danger, danger. I don't know how to handle this. I have this weakness. I always lose. Ooh. So was this Act 1? Oh, we haven't gotten here yet. So this is trying to create an argument to say there's a need to create a new thought experiment to look at relational dynamics a little differently, to look at the rules that we're imposing on ourselves and imposing on other people that we can't enforce. And if you're enforcing rules on yourself that no one's enforcing, saying, giving you rewards for being a good person or whatever, why are you not allowing your resentment to turn into anger, to turn into getting even? Because that's why you feel resentment, because you had an unfair exchange and you feel, I've been cheated. You tamp down resentment, like Grannon was saying, then you're sort of screwed. Here's another resentment angle. I wasn't even going to use resentment as an intro.
And so resentment is a very good litmus test for, am I being codependent? And it keeps me, when I can project forward and say, oh, I'm going to feel resentment if I make more than 2 dozen cookies. And so I'm going to say no. That keeps me on the straight and narrow and not being codependent with Patty. And now I might have a voice in my head if I'm codependent, and I might have that voice that says, okay, well, if I don't do this, Patty's going to be mad at me. And she's not going to think I'm very good.
Now that's a motivator. So that's part of her fear of Patty's madness and punishment. That's part of a game transaction, maybe a secret contract that is unspoken.
And she's not going to think I'm a very good mom, and she's going to be upset, whatever. If I'm codependent, I'm worried about that. I'm worried about how Patty's going to feel about it.
Now, this is a wrong label to say, to psychologize and say, I'm codependent. Because I'm codependent, I feel this way. Because you suck at the game, because you don't know how to block Patty's judgments, or you don't know how to not have your reputation get tarnished by Patty's judgments. That's why you're worried, not because you're codependent. It's because you're stupid at the social game. You don't know how to navigate it. That's all. You call yourself codependent, then you go into this wild mess of, let me rescue my inner child, and let me do 20 hours of shadow work, and let me dive here and here and here and all this stuff to heal myself. When there's a person that's your target, that you're afraid of, that you can clearly label, and you can clearly label what the transaction or the interaction is that you're worried about. Why wouldn't you put some time there too? Instead of diving into all these different healing modalities that aren't addressing your anxiety. Your anxiety is about a particular threat in the social sphere. Now, the threat is very complicated. That's what I'm trying to set up for in the second and third portions. I'm trying to build up a need to amplify the unmet need that's sort of not addressed by a therapy, because therapists are losers. They're not popular. They're not socially high. They're neurotics that have grown up codependents in traumatic families, and they're trying to figure out their shit. That's why they became therapists. That's why they created these models, to try to make the world nicer, because they can't navigate a socially, psychologically dangerous landscape. Look at her eyes. Is that confidence or fear?
Yeah.
You see the anxiety?
Yeah. She's terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just talking about the story, she's terrified. She's reliving a fucking flashback here. But that's also the wounded healer. So now she can heal other people to make the world a better place, so she can feel a little safer. Okay. Still didn't get into manipulation. Okay, this is the argument. Manipulation is natural.
Yeah, manipulative is a dirty word, but we're all manipulative, so So I talk about babies. Babies cry when they don't get what they want. You know, there's a reason why babies like to be held and bobbed up and down. It's because if you're holding a baby and you're bobbing them up and down, there's nothing else that you could possibly be doing that's useful, right? A baby knows that they have all of your attention when you're doing that. And do people call babies manipulative? I don't think they do, because babies are unaware of what they're actually doing. But when a toddler throws a tantrum or a baby cries or any, you know, you see, if you go anywhere where people are taking care of children, you see children just completely manipulating adults. And in some sense, actually not in some sense, in almost every sense, adults really cultivate that. They really cultivate their child's ability to manipulate them. They really cultivate their child's ability to manipulate them.
Because the child can't speak, has no language. The child has to manipulate the parents to get fed, to get the diaper changed, to be happy, to navigate life. So instead of this argument that emotional manipulation is learned behavior because of a childhood traumatic experience, manipulation is the default state that we're born into. It's a state of before language. Then we're supposed to socialize ourselves and grow out of childhood manipulation. But that doesn't mean that is still not part of our system. That's part of the argument. But codependents, they might grow up and then they, because they can't handle the manipulation, or they've been manipulated, they've lost. So then they judge manipulation with their resentment. And then they create these 3 covert contracts. Also on the resentment theme, which wasn't the plan.
And there's 3 primary covert contracts of nice guy syndrome. This be true for guys or girls. One is that if I'm a good person, then I'll be liked and loved. If I'm a good person, then I'll be liked and loved. Second covert contract is that if I meet everybody else's needs without them having to ask, then they will meet my needs without me having to ask. If I meet everybody else's needs without them having to ask, then they will meet my needs.
Now, would a narcissist agree to this second contract? How's it going? Thank you. I'm not giving anything back. There's no contract. Narcissists would have no guilt or any issues with this, with not following this secret second contract. What's the third one?
Without me having to ask. Now, as you can imagine, that's not a very functional way of relating to other people. Third covert contract of nice guy syndrome is if I do everything right, then I'll have a smooth, problem-free life.
Perfectionism. If I do everything right.
Right. Yeah.
I'll have a smooth, problem-free life. Has anyone succeeded with the third contract? Anyone sort of halfway?
It's just not true. It's just not true.
It's not true. No.
So maybe somebody, it's time to update that map. Okay, so let's see. What's the setup? So Tony Robbins has a breakdown of 6 core human needs, and I think I can spin this or make it link. The top 4 are basic needs, and they're paradoxical. And the bottom 2 are spiritual needs, which we might cover or might not. We don't need to worry about the bottom 2. So the top 2 are certainty and variety. So the need for certainty, I'm guessing codependents identify with that. That's pretty easy. Does anyone understand or have problems with what the need for variety and uncertainty, why that would come? Or novelty? What's the example of novelty? If I keep you stuck during the pandemic at home for every day Groundhog Day for months on end. Do you want some variety?
Yes.
Uh-huh. See? So
They
if you
call
have
it cabin fever.
too much certainty, your hormones and body will naturally want some variety. Then if you have too much variety, where every day is different and there's always something new and there's chaos, you'll want the opposite. You'll want some certainty. So there's a balance between certainty and variety that's always sort of a push-pull dance. Now, the social game, the argument I'm making is there's two worlds we're playing in. We're playing in the significance game. This is sort of social status. That's the status game, dominance hierarchy. Jordan Peterson talks about lobsters and all this stuff with the significance game. But then the love and connection game, this is the area of more manipulation. Relationship, love bombing, narcissist, all this stuff, these hidden games is in the domain of belonging, in the game of love and connection. Does anyone have a visceral objection or confusion yet?
No.
We're so quiet. Okay, here's a teaser. And we might refer to this later, so no need to memorize stuff. So, the significance game is guilt and blame, and that's more masculine. It's about dominance, hierarchy, and power, social status. Men have more testosterone, so they just fight it out, and they feel good because they share their power. They exhausted their power, fight's over. Debbie's mentioned that in court. The guys fight, then they can have lunch. But the opposite side, the female side of argument is using shame, and that's a belonging game, and it's about reputation. So two girls will fight and try to destroy their reputation, and they'll never let it go, because if they let it go, that means they're giving that person place. They're giving that person, they want to exclude the person's belonging, and that's the punishment. That's the exertion of power, is exile, is shunning, is judgment, is reputation destruction, is othering, try to get the other person into the outside tribe. So there's an in tribe. That's why oxytocin is linked to the love and connection hormone. But oxytocin also makes you hate outgroup more. The empathy that you get from oxytocin makes you more judgmental on outsiders. So this is the game that therapy hasn't mapped out. They've mapped out this game because it's obvious. Guys fight and there's categories, there's right and wrong. So they've mapped out how things should work based on blame and guilt. They haven't mapped out the shame game.
No.
Because this is all hidden and masked. It's all innuendo, gossip, reputation. It's all hidden, covert. And therapists, they suck at this game. They've had wounds from it, so they can't even guide people on how to have charisma and how to navigate shame and honor in this. They just create rules based on this significance and certainty, right and wrong. But it doesn't work in this realm. In this realm, it's about gaslighting, manipulation, twisting realities, making the other person's reputation and belonging unstable. Therapy was never for us as a couple. It was another place for him to try to prove I'm crazy. Yeah, see? You go to therapy, then the narcissist plays a power game, blames you as a victim first, and the therapist sides with your narcissist. Or your partner can shame you and use these innuendo jabs that gets to the therapist's unconscious. Or they can knock the therapist's lack of belonging, probe that, poke that. And then the therapist is scared of the narcissist more than you. Also lose. All of this realm is unexplored. Even though this is part of history. It's always been part of history. It's part of our innate. We fight both in this realm, belonging, and we also fight in social status, dominance. More masculine here, more feminine here. Where am I? So now the hard argument. This is the meat. And maybe I'll need some feedback, because this might be heavy or not. Where is it?
To not belong was a death sentence. To not belong was a death sentence.
That captures the essence of it. I think Richard Grandin talks about abandonment terror that borderlines have. This is another reframing. To not belong, death sentence. That's ingrained in our DNA. Because it was true for many thousands and hundred parts of history. If you weren't part of a tribe, you were out in the wilderness and you fended for yourself and you died.
If you have this mechanism which causes you to seek belonging, to find people to come together, to co-join with, that only works if, as well as creating a drive towards an in-group, if it creates an out-group at the same time. You can't have one without the other. And why? Well, because if the mechanism evolved that said, trust everyone, pull everyone towards you, make everyone part of your group, then another genotype would arise in the population that said, take advantage of those people who are trusting all the time. So the only way you can have a mechanism that says, trust other people, is if you say, trust the in-group and don't trust the out-group. Trust the in-group and don't trust the out-group.
So, if narcissists and borderlines, they can play the oxytocin game, and they can get security of in-group, or flying monkeys. They can get win favor of the in-group, and then you as a codependent are always at the edge of feeling like you're in the out-group. You don't know who to trust. Because they're playing the belonging game, they're playing the oxytocin game. And if you're at the edge of the out-group, you're distrusted by other people. So you should be insecure about your trust and your belonging in the group, because they're actively attacking it.
And this mechanism, which has a hormonal pathway, which is regulated by a hormone called oxytocin, and status is regulated by testosterone, but this hormonal pathway does two things. It creates feelings of empathy and trust within the in-group at the same time that it derogatizes an out-group and creates distrust. And it has all sorts of other effects. Like, you can see heterogeneity within the in-group, but you homogenize the out-group, what we might call othering in social science. These are very basic, mostly subconscious evolutionary mechanisms that we've evolved for very good reasons, both status and belonging, but that have the side effect of driving us towards group conflict. Trust the in-group and don't trust the out-group. Group conflict. Trust the in-group and don't trust the out-group. To not belong was a death sentence. Death sentence. Death sentence.
So that in-group and out-group that oxytocin amplifies, the cuddle hormone also amplifies an out-group, creates more conflict. And if a codependent's goal is only to tamp down conflict, you're not even playing the game and you're going to get stomped by everybody else. Because you'll be put in the out group while the narcissist and borderline's doing all this work.
Can you say that part again, Deep? You said if the codependent is only doing what with conflict?
If the codependent is conflict averse, if you're just trying to block conflict, then you're being put to the out group as far as oxytocin. Especially if you call yourself an empath and you're bathing in oxytocin yourself, you're also going to create an in-group and out-group, and that amplifies conflict. Also, the power game hierarchy also does it. Status amplifies conflict, but belonging, oxytocin, also amplifies conflict. Both of these two is a history of warfare, the history of human conflict since evolutionary times, using a biological and historical framework. That's a problem of America right now. We don't have a greater enemy, so we're fighting each other because we're bored. The belonging needs someone. The belonging and status game requires conflict to satisfy human needs. We're hardwired for that sort of conflict. It's a bit of a deep dive and a stretch, yes. So Trina, does that follow a little? Are you able to sort of keep up?
Yeah, that makes sense now. I think initially I thought you said I thought I heard that codependent, we are not avoid the conflict, but we're always trying to solve the conflict. But maybe that's...
Well, if you're solving the conflict, you're playing the you're playing the power, blame, right and wrong game. You're playing the certainty, this is right, this is wrong, this is the hierarchical structure. But if the conflict is based on belonging, reputation destruction, shame, you're in the wrong game.
Right. And I feel like it was labeling myself as a codependent easy to often just be like, well, I'm just trying to solve the problem. I'm just trying to help us avoid this conflict down the road. I'm just trying to.
You're trying to keep your belonging. See, you're still playing the belonging game by saying, right, I'm more virtuous because I'm trying to keep the peace, blah, blah, blah. But you're also playing the belonging game by saying, I have a high reputation because I'm more virtuous.
Right.
But this person labels belonging as a virtue dominance status game, so it's a little confusing, but it's basically the same territory. Is it this one or this one?
We've been competing for status with dominance since before we were human. You know, it's fighting, it's threat, it's violence, it's bullying, ostracization, all those kinds of things. But once we settled down and started living in, communities, and so what happened was we started competing for status with the reputation. And the way you earn status with reputation is you prove that you are valuable to your group, you're useful to your group.
So this is the belonging game. It's this different game than masculine power games. That's more, scoring points and getting titles and climbing the hierarchy. This is a reputation game, different rules, different layout.
Prove that you are valuable to your group, you're useful to your group. And there are two ways of being useful to your group. One of the ways is by being virtuous, so generous and selfish and courageous in battle.
And Trina, that's your argument of saying, I'm the nice person. I'm being virtuous by doing the good things, but that's slower. This other way of virtue is faster.
But also following rules and enforcing the rules when other people don't follow them. Forcing the rules when other people don't follow them.
That's virtue signaling. So enforcing the rules and policing the rules and getting away with it. That's what narcissists and borderlines and abusers do better, and they get more virtue. So they beat you at the virtue game by punishing you, by enforcing rules on you, and they seem more virtuous. Then you feel resentful because it's unfair. Because they're
Absolutely, yeah. That makes perfect
they're
sense.
not even following their own rule, so you want to go complain to someone above them, but there is no one. Or there is. That's in the next video. So the old way, there used to be a complaint system. But now there isn't. It's fallen apart. We'll get to that.
And then the other way, the hardest way, is success, but being competent, but being, a fantastic, storyteller, hunter, honey finder, forcing the rules when other people don't follow them. Bullying is always about status. It's always about taking somebody that's there and pushing them down there. And with your kind of act of, that's the dominance, act, with the act of dominance, raising yourself up.
So dominance and bullying is top down. And that's sort of my critique of codependence, right? Top down, you tell me what to do. Where is that link? Oh, not prepared. So if you come into this group and then I tell you stuff top down, I'm socializing you to continue to just listen to authority. And that's doesn't work. Oh, here it is.
Codependency, top down. You tell me what to think. Codependency, top down. You tell me what to think. Thou shalt,
or this.
Thou shalt not. These are injunctions. Thou shalt not. These are injunctions.
So if you're used to being a docile top down, listen to the bully, let the bully win. You go to this group or to a therapist and they teach you top-down strategies. That's not going to help you in the belonging game or with a bully, with a social bully. Because they play the role of top-down better than you. And then by default, you've been trained to just be a docile follower.
Forcing the rules when other people don't follow them. Yeah, I mean, virtue is the easiest form of status to gain, and I think that's also why social media is so toxic, because all you've got to do is, to make yourself feel a bit better, is to retweet somebody with a sneery little comment, and all your followers go, yeah, and you feel good about yourself. So it's so easy. It's like popcorn status, you're just shoveling it down your neck. Feel good about yourself. Forcing the rules when other people don't follow them. So it's so easy. It's feel good about yourself. Feel good about yourself. Feel good about yourself.
So that's the addictive high. And then Debbie, when you didn't intentionally try to make her throw a tantrum, but you saw her break down in a tantrum, you instinctively felt maybe that she embarrassed herself in the social game, and you felt good.
Yeah.
So somebody who doesn't have a self, a narcissist, or has an insecure sense of self, they tap onto this addictive, cheap wins of just dominating people or calling out people for virtue violations. And they feel good. And they just keep doing it because that's their only sense of belonging. That's their desperation also. If they have to keep doing it, that means they're desperate. They're losers. Because that's not real virtue. If you're only policing everybody, you're just pretending to be virtuous. And you have to constantly do that. Real virtue is, sainthood. You're going the path of living a virtuous life. It's a shortcut to virtue. So this is the complicated part. This is why the world has fallen apart, because of this argument.
But the worst of human behavior, even up to and including genocide, which I also write about, is virtue dominance play. It's virtue play because it's about you will follow the rules, you will not insult our sacred beliefs, you will not insult our sacred symbols, and if you don't, we will get you. So that's that dominance kind of virtue play, and it's fundamental. It's human behavior. Gossip is universal. It plays a crucial function in human social life. Controlled social behavior by gossiping. Controlled social behavior by gossiping.
So the universal function of gossiping is to control bad behaviors and also encourage good behaviors. And that's always been throughout time as a social check. And in a sense, narcissists now, with their charisma, they can get away with bad behavior because they lie about it. Or they get you as a partner to overreact. So they're sort of cheating the gossip chain. They're conning it. They're being con men. But the thing is, historically, there were gatekeepers for gossip, which is where he goes into next.
And if people got a bad reputation, they'd be punished. But if the gossip was positive, this person did an amazing thing, they'd raise in status and become heroic. We've all evolved to gossip. Children begin to do kind of tattletale forms of gossip almost as soon as they can talk. It's baked into us.
It's baked into us, and then girls, they spend all their life mastering gossip, vindictive, malicious strategies, which is now scaled up into this current culture wars.
Hey, righteous girls.
There's righteous ones. But then they lose. They lose the gossip game. They're not the meanies. The queen bees are the mean girls that are winning the gossip game.
I mean, it's a whole show based on that, right? It's called Gossip Girls. My own daughters loved it, and that was the premise of the show. Who could spread what about each other, but make themselves look good or bad based on what was spread.
They loved it.
8 series.
They could get tips from it, or they could get survival mechanisms to see how it works, or they had this sort of inner joy of seeing the game played at a super high level. Because that's the current scare for teenage girls now, because this gossip is viral now. It's 24/7 with social media, right? So he goes into this more now.
It's baked into us. That's how we were regulating our societies for thousands of years. And then when we settled down and communities started growing so big that we couldn't know everybody personally, so we couldn't gossip about everybody individually, we invented the big God religions. And so religion is a gossip network, but God knows all the gossip, and you're going to get punished or rewarded after life. So, and it was the feeling that God was watching you. And then...
So he simplified the angle, but that's a good argument. So religion was a gossip network, or a virtue network. So religion, like Catholics, they would have confession once a week, or often. And what do you do in confession? You go there and then you confess what you did bad. And then you got some penance so you could fix yourself, so you could be more virtuous. So you had a third party that you had to openly talk to and repent to try to contain your bad behavior. And then if you're in a community that's embedded in the church, word would get around if you're a narcissist and you're sleeping around with 5 people and you're cheating everybody in exchanges, your reputation would get destroyed within the church and the community.
You mean all those years of me saying Hail Marys and going to confession was my time? Darn it.
That was...
You're saying it didn't work, Trina.
Say that again?
You're saying it didn't work.
Hell no, it didn't work. Aren't I in this group with you?
We're in the same kid.
What taught you to listen to authority? So that's where it didn't work. Or it taught you to trust the system. It didn't really teach you how to deal with evil. That'd be like Peterson's framing. So religions was a gossip network, but then religions died, taken over by science. Then what took over?
Journalism became our gossip network. That's how we tattled about, especially high status people, and moral outrage was raised and they will be punished. And we're living in a kind of post-journalistic age now.
So when journalism was the gossip network, you could sue a newspaper for defamation of character. So that was also a check and balance to keep from malicious gossip, malicious just random nonsense. But now things have changed.
And social media is our new gossip network, pathological form of gossip network, because there are barely any consequences for spreading malicious gossip. I think back in the days of the tribe, people, if you spread malicious gossip, you were going to get gossiped about, and bad things could happen to you. Everything you attach status to, we're going to flock to it. These days, you're attaching status to these extreme political beliefs. You're attaching status to the ability to tear your kind of ideological enemies down. So that's what we're going to do. And
that's what Debbie didn't allow with her friend. She had an extreme view she wanted to get supply from, or she wanted to tear down Debbie's view, and Debbie didn't give her those two supply options. And that confused her, and she threw a tantrum because it's so easy to get these two supplies everywhere else. That's the current norm.
That's what we're doing. So it's a pathological gossip network that incentivizes this kind of virtue dominance form of status game. The psychologists call the process of self-domestication. We domesticated ourselves. We became much more feminized. We had bigger eyes, and we control the world much more by controlling other people, understanding how minds work and being able to manipulate them. Where our aggression is group versus group. Where our aggression is group versus group.
Group versus group. That is oxytocin. Most of our aggression is acted out here in the belonging game. The aggression in this testosterone game is acted out in football or controlled sports or political battles, maybe. But this reputation belonging game, this is where the aggression, this is a confusion, this is the land of emotional manipulation.
Modernity is when the emphasis shifted from playing virtue games to success games. That post-industrial revolution, we had started specifically attaching success to things like discovering useful knowledge, making things more efficient, creating inventions, bigger, better, faster, more. If you really want to be a virtuous person, actually you should play a success game, because success games are the things that have, saved billions of lives through vaccinations. Success games.
Oh, that's his argument. So the way out of these two, status and virtue, that's what he calls belonging, is to play competence. The path of growth and contribution. So now you're contributing to the society, and you're using a skill that saves the world. That would be the way out. But this is no fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, Anthony Fauci would agree with that.
This is no fun, and next Saturday, I think we're going to talk how everybody regresses to this strategy. So you're going to regress to power and social place, taken to your adolescence or inner child, and you're still going to have to figure out how to battle in these two realms, because all I have to do, or any abuser, is poke you, knock you off balance with enough uncertainty, confuse you with variety and certainty, kick you down into inner child defenses. And if I'm a impulsive cluster B, I'm better at this game. I'm better at power games, and I'm better at belonging games. Where are we? 6 minutes. Status and belonging games. Where's everyone at? We got Iman. Welcome, Iman.
Hey, guys.
Makes sense. Confused. It's too heavy, too light, too foreign. What do you guys got?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused of what the what the answer is. Like, yeah, I think that's where I am. I'm confused as to really what the answer is. How do you?
How much do you understand the problem, though? answers can take time, but if you understand the problem better, then that'll help navigate future situations.
Well, okay, so I think I understand the problem to be this, is that as a codependent, the search is always for trying to avoid or resolve conflicts so that everybody wins, which is probably impossible in real adult life. But that's what the codependent, right? This codependent's quest in life is to keep everybody happy, right? And to keep calm because there's fear of being abandoned and all of this stuff. And
fear of being abandoned, belonging, keep everyone happy, belonging.
Right. So I understand that to be the problem of the codependent, right? And then the tactic of the narcissist is to go in there and I guess exploit that by developing this, or maybe that's just human nature, this sort of like team A and team B, and then codependent doesn't fit
in group and out
anywhere.
group. Yeah.
Right. So the codependent can't fit in anywhere because they really haven't necessarily picked a side, I guess, because
that's the issue. If you don't pick a side, you're the out group.
Right.
That's
just the rules. The whole thing is, can't we all just get along, and can't we all just like no. Pick a side. And so it's I don't know. So I
That's
think
not
I understand
how oxytocin works. Oxytocin
requires that we pick a side. Right?
Amplifies in group and out group, which means you have to pick a side or you're automatically out group. That's Mean Girls.
I'm not really sure. Yeah, that's Mean Girls. And I'm not so sure that codependents even pick themselves, right? That's not an option either.
That too. Codependents just fall and fall down and think someone's going to see their pity and let them join the team. That's sort of works, but not in the real world.
Right. It doesn't really work in adult. Right. And so I'm hearing what I heard is like, okay, we'll come in super confident, and that could sort of work until the narcissist figures out that that's really just a game, and they beat you at that too. So I'm not really sure what I hear as what do. I mean, and I know we're not here to just say, okay, this is the answer, but as I think about my own life, I think I've played that super confident role, and sort of as a shield.
Well, the super confident role is social status game.
Right, and it doesn't last for so long because...
Well, it works in hierarchy. It doesn't work in relationships. Two different games. So if you try to use strategies in this game, it doesn't automatically transfer to this game unless you climb to the top of hierarchies. Then it can sort of transfer. If you have money, power, and influence, then you'll get automatic belonging. But just acting confident doesn't climb you up the ladder.
No, right. And I see that. And I forget what you said the other strategy was. You could try that, and then there was another strategy. I guess not too clear what the other strategy is.
Well, there's two games. So you're following that. So there's a dominance guilt thing. There's a guilt and responsibility game. So if you're a perfectionist and you do everything right, you're playing the blame game. You're trying to be blameless, right? Isn't that the purpose of perfectionism?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the blame game is a significance game. It's a status game. It's not a belonging game. Different rules, different, you have to play both.
Mm.
How's that land? That's kind of heavy. You have to play both of these games.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about that, but and I only have my own life to judge from, but I can see it as you're talking, like I've done both. Depending on the situation, and it just seems like to stay alive and to stay relevant and to stay connected, and sort of filling out the crowd and feeling, and that isn't that a bit manipulative in itself? But yeah.
Codependence and society sort of judges manipulation. I'm making an argument that humans are automatically manipulative. That's our innate nature.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So if you're judging other people's manipulation, you're judging your own manipulation, and you're taking away tools in the belonging game. You're already not good at this game. Why would you limit your tools?
Right. I 100% agree with that. And I guess it becomes like just knowing when to play which hand, I guess,
Awareness, that's part of our first two sections. And then maybe I'll try to give some tips on how to build skills on the belonging game. So do you understand the problem more? How about that?
Yeah, I definitely understand the problem. And as we're talking now, the solution almost, I guess, if I'm totally honest, the solution, again, I only can speak for myself. I don't pretend to speak for all codependents, but the solution almost is innate, is almost an automatic reaction. Like, okay, this is what I have to do to survive. And then sometimes for myself, I feel like, well, is that okay to use that angle, for lack of a better term? But yeah, it is. That's just what it is. I'm trying my best to feel safe, and it isn't necessarily manipulative. It's survival instinct. It's innate.
You have innate survival instincts. That's a muscle, so it has to be practiced and built. But there are ways to manipulate back in the belonging game, which is the land of humor, ridicule, and humiliation. Can codependence open that door? That's sort of the hard sell.
I think it's, again, maybe a little bit more difficult for codependents to use.
Humiliation?
Humiliation, yeah. Not the humor part, but the humiliation, because...
Well, you don't want to... Humiliation is dangerous for a narcissist because they're grandiose. So you want to use titrated humiliation or third-party humiliation, so you're not the target of their blast.
Oh, that'd be interesting to learn how to do that.
Okay, so now you have some curiosity, which means it's potentially possible. You have some interest in it. You think it could be possible, and that's all I can do today, because this game is my weakness and my strength. So my weakness is that I think my brain is oxytocin deficient. So people who have in-group highs, they can feel like a shiver up their spine when they feel like belonging, whether they're at a concert or they're in love or something. There's like that Mike Martin, he describes some shiver up his spine. But some girls I've talked to when they're in love, and my girlfriend, she talked about, my ex-girlfriend, she said, there's like butterflies in the stomach. That's, I'm assuming, is oxytocin. So she is able to get butterflies in the stomach. I've never been able to feel it. I don't know. So if I can't personally, viscerally feel in-group oxytocin, it's hard for me to manipulate you to get the right frequency of both of us having in-group oxytocin. So that's one of my blind spots. But my strength is, since I have this blind spot, I'm not susceptible to manipulation of in-group, because I don't feel a high of fake charisma. or it's weakened. It's not as, I don't fall into that vortex of oxytocin manipulation. But I don't like feeling like out-group, so that's, I don't get the oxytocin spike of it, but I get the negative. DJ.
Oh, okay. That was my question. Okay, so you don't get the high and the need to. Well, I guess you do because you have a girlfriend, but you don't get that craving for.
Oh, well, my girlfriend would say like she'd have like photo and have longing, and where if she wasn't in front of me, I just didn't think of her, so I didn't have that that longing. That's also what oxytocin does.
Yeah.
It's a bonding hormone, but it bonds you with the in group. It bonds you with your love partner, but also makes you exclude people in the out group. Makes you other people. Makes you hate opposites or out group. That's the downside.
Right. You become very selective towards and aligned to a particular, and that part you don't have. But
so if you're
the way narcissists are, though, don't narcissists? I mean, I felt like my husband didn't have that. He didn't have that selective. I'm bonded.
Oh, that's probably true. So a narcissist is probably playing more of the power game. A borderline is probably playing more of the belonging game. So a narcissist is going to use a lot of power plays, right? They're using blame shifting. But they're aware enough that if they get kicked out of, if their reputation gets destroyed, they're in trouble. So that's why they do the flying monkeys. That's why they're learning how to be charismatic. But in earlier meetings, we've talked about how some narcissist partners, they would watch movies. But does anyone have any stories of narcissist partners watching movies and reading the script word for word from the poem in the movie? So they're learning how to be charismatic and belonging from TV shows and movies.
Wow.
Because they don't have the innate oxytocin. And in a sense, in the past, I was able to just copy belonging games and just script it. And it still works, yeah. But the queen bees who are able to really precisely know the in and out group feeling, they can exploit your lack of belonging. They can sniff it off of you, and they can manipulate you based on veiled threats of rejection. And borderlines do that too, with like ODV, ostentatious displays.
Ostentatious displays of vulnerability. Ostentatious displays of vulnerability. Ostentatious displays of vulnerability. The bad feeling you get when your map of reality doesn't match the reality that you're faced with. You can't live with that level of cognitive
So if we label
dissonance.
cognitive dissonance as an intellectual
Cognitive
thing,
dissonance
that's what we said
essentially
before.
means the bad feeling you get when your map of
This bad
reality
feeling
doesn't match the reality.
Maybe it's a belonging hit. Maybe it's not a bad feeling of your map of reality. It's a feeling that your belonging is at risk. That's why you have a bad feeling, because reputation destruction is lying, is saying, I love you, I'm accepting you. But the tone and energy is, I'm destroying your reputation. That's the cognitive dissonance. That's borderline territory. That's what they're good at, right? So we sense that, but we can't call it out, because we call it out. On the surface, they're nice and they're loving. Seems like it. Ooh, we're losing Trina and Kay. Ooh, we're almost finishing up, but we'll have a recording of that, and probably a part 2 in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. But this is defining the problem. That's most of the problem. That's the issue. The solution we'll get to with time, because this is not easy. But once you realize the game, and you put it in this evolutionary framework, then things are easier. It makes sense because this is our hardwiring. That's my argument. Okay, so how do we get back? Maybe this, but I have to make an argument on how to get back. That's going to be harder. How? What's the proper upping our game?
The worst of human behavior, even the most dangerous people probably on earth, narcissistic people. People probably on earth, narcissistic people. So people who believe that they're entitled to high status and they're humiliated because they're dropping down a hell of a long way. And if they're male, more likely to respond with violence. Grandiose, male, and humiliated are this kind of these three kind of red flags. Dominance is partly about one-on-one physical competition, but it's also about competition with reputation.
So one-on-one's easy. That's easy to spot, winner or whatever. Reputation is collective, and it's hidden. That's much harder. That's requires different tactics.
And, you know, a person's reputation, that's their kind of avatar. That's their, what they're playing the status game with. So if you attack someone's reputation, you're attacking their identity. You're attacking the core of who they are and everything they've worked towards, the kind of locus of the meaning of their life. You're attacking the core of who they are. And what happens when our status is taken away? It must be pretty bad. So you know, I started looking into that and the idea of humiliation, because one of the technical definitions of humiliation is it's not only the removal of your status, it's the removal of your ability to claim status in the future.
So the second part, it's not only humiliation, you're removing future status, right?
Removal of your ability to claim status in the future. That is.
So this is one of the biggest fears, and I'd argue this is one of the weak spots, the potential weak spot for a narcissist. Borderline, not so much, because they just enmesh with you and forget their problems. It's a different thing. But a narcissist gets public humiliation. That's a giant narcissistic injury. So the key is not to humiliate them. The key is to give a small dose of humiliation pain or a threat of mockery to get them to back off. And then if you wanted to do more to get even, you want to indirectly have somebody else give the injury or build them up so that they're stupid enough that they fall on their face in public, and then it's their fault. But that's kind of evil. Let's see if there's any other ideas here.
A catastrophic thing.
Or what Debbie sort of did. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
For humans to experience, if it's serious and it's chronic, it goes on and on and on. One researcher described humiliation as an annihilation of the self. Annihilation of the self.
That's something with a narcissist, they have no sense of self, so they're always flailing around in the air. That's why they're so insecure. That's why they need supply all the time. But the codependent falls for their grandiose self or the love bombing. They don't see their insecurity.
If you think about the very worst of human behavior, you'll find humiliation in there. So that to me was like, okay, I think this is right about status. I think it is this important.
Will, and is this why people are so fearful of humor and comedy? Because comedy is one of the most powerful ways to take status away from things. When you mock something, even playfully, you are taking away the significance from it.
You know, a basic way that back in the days of the tribe that we would manage people's behavior, social behavior, is if we were gossiping about them and the gossip was bad, you'd begin by mockery and a bit of mockery and humiliation. It's a way of drawing people down, and that's exactly right. I grew up, in the 90s. I'm a Gen Xer. I remember watching Bill Hicks on Channel 4 late one night and having my mind just blown,
So comedy is the doorway to soften shame or disarm shame, just as a general rule.
I would argue that culturally the English are very, very good at this. Americans are a lot better than they ever have been, but the English take it to another level.
They have that extreme level.
Very, very extreme self-deprecation, and even celebrities of very high note get in on it, including the royal family.
So how do we translate that into a skill for codependence?
Don't take yourself so seriously.
That's part of this group, to be able to banter and joke about being a victim instead of this, oh my God, my injury is the worst thing in the world. Let's all hate on the narcissist.
I had an experience. I had a similar experience like that. I just had a similar experience where I used comedy because I just did a group show. So when I went to pick up the pieces, you know, some of my pieces have pencils in them, and it's a series. Yeah. And there's a theme behind it. So the guy, he forgot that he had showed his, I guess his disdain for the pencils, and he feels like it's redundant. So when I went to pick up the pieces, it's like, oh, you know, someone in the show, someone who was gonna buy the pieces, but they said they would buy the pieces if it didn't have pencils. And I said, oh, I know that guy. He's the same guy who refuses to buy cars because they have tires. And so he couldn't come back from that. But before, I would have exploded, like, what do they mean? Like, why would they say that, or something like that? You know, so it's very comedy, like laughing at this stuff is very, very, especially when you're being gaslighted and you know someone is trying to gaslight you, you amplify the gaslight.
Yeah, I think that's really, I like that in aircon a lot.
It's
That's very useful.
Shameful attack, a joke, and if you took it seriously and you got attacking, then you lose because your overreaction shows you don't believe you belong. But if you humor it and make him feel shameful by making a stupid comment, you flipped it where he doesn't feel like he belongs. And that's a skill you have to build, or guys do that even more with wood-covered put-downs. But I'm guessing girls probably do this even more maliciously in the mean girl stage. But I'm still researching that. This is girls are probably the experts. We got to find like a natural queen bee mean girl. See if she's written a book of how to.
Have we got one in the group? I don't think we do.
No, why would they be here?
I was going to say.
God forbid. Hell no. Come on, Brad. What? Are you serious? In this group? No. I strongly doubt that.
I don't know. I thought Brenda had potential. But, you know.
Well, she does play the game. She does it a bit disorganized, but the last...
there's enough in there.
The last thing she was constantly like saying, that's the wrong topic, this topic is that's belonging. And you're like, you're doing the wrong, you're not letting me speak, that's belonging. All these injunctions, they're belonging hits. So she was playing this game.
And telling the men how to be men. I like that one. That was my favorite. Yeah,
absolutely.
What belongs, what doesn't belong. That's the belonging game. Who gets space, who gets a place, who doesn't, what's the order of things. The belonging game.
Yeah. Everyone just be quiet. Everyone, okay, so we just don't upset anyone's feelings. All that sort of stuff.
So 2 minutes. Let's see. How about closing on this? I'm not sure if this will be perfect. Was it this? This?
What they do is give you a cycle of simulated usefulness. those are the ones that I'm stuck on. Like the survival ones, simulated usefulness, the survival ones, the ones that are longer burns, like that aren't just attacking you. Like you have to chop down the tree and it takes like 10 minutes. You're getting the resources. Sometimes I play with a friend and then we talk about, what do you want to build here? And then we can prevent the zombies from coming in.
So this is more of a masculine form of belonging. You're part of a team and you're providing the structure, but that's a belonging game.
It's like there's a teamwork. You couldn't really do that in real life. Oh, what are you going to build like a dollhouse with your friends, like your homie in real life? Like it's not going to work. These are innate human desires. Innate human desires.
Instincts.
They're supposed to be used for productivity.
So here's the question. What do we play games to escape? We're playing games to escape the dopamine simulation, and we're playing games to escape our own lingering sense of uselessness. Our own lingering sense of uselessness.
Now, it's not, he's blaming our own. I would blame that society is actually making people feel like they don't belong. Or social media is making people feel like they're irrelevant because computers and advances making human existence optional. I mean, who's vital anymore?
Yes, because what are the choices in real life? You can build that giant business. It's not made for everyone, but you can try. You might just get a job and that's your hunt and feed yourself cycle or whatever. It's like, but don't you want to be the one that like makes that run to get those can of beans for your camp so the entire camp doesn't die? And then it's a lot more tangible than doing some useless job that doesn't feel like you're providing anything to it. And maybe that's why you still look back and it's a good thing for you because it provides a tangible sense of value, like usefulness there. Tangible sense of value, like usefulness there.
Yes, immediacy of action with risk. You're at the cutting edge of a scenario that is unfolding. This fucker is going to punch that fucker in the face unless you stop it now. Immediacy of action with risk. And if you make good decisions, there'll be no violence and everybody will be happy. If you make bad decisions, you'll get the shit kicked out of you.
Yeah. For every incarnation of a human community and tribe, there has always been people to watch the gates.
Now, this is a key. So this is, they didn't spend that much time on this, but it's the gatekeepers.
Idris Elba's on the gate with a huge double-edged broadsword, like that being all stoic and massive and godlike. There's significance there. There's contribution there. There's risk, and there's decision making. What your decisions make matter. What your decisions make matter. Decisions matter. Decisions matter.
So the decisions of having a gatekeeper to manage the gossip chain, to manage social media, that's gone. It's the algorithms that are controlling it, and the algorithms care about clicks and other things. They're not making the right decisions for the community. They're allowing bad actors, and they're rewarding bad actors. And they're allowing narcissists to go into dating sites to have their reputation, their old reputation erased, and they can have a new one. There's no background check, so it's an open play field for abusers, manipulators to dive into society with the gates open. No gatekeepers, no bouncers, no editors, no moderators, no breach builders. So then everybody finds cheap ways to play the status game because that's a fast, quick hit, dopamine hit. Let me attack this person, get a virtue signal hit. And that's playing the belonging game recklessly. We need somebody that's gatekeepers of the Oxytocin games to say what's important, what's not important, what matters. That's what Oxytocin is supposed to have. Your tribe matters. Those other people don't matter. We need wisdom from mother energy, matter, to help us sort through what matters.